it's Sam. In this video I'm going to talk a little bit more about the Rasi aspects themselves, what they are and how they work. They refer more to fixed qualities in the natal chart. So one of the things to understand is that the Rasis themselves are fixed, meaning they're always in the place that they are. The zodiac itself is a solid, fixed structure. Of course, the planets and the meanings of the planets are also fixed, but the planets move is the difference. Some things about astrology are, simple in the fact that, understanding the deeper meaning and the principle shows by just looking at what the thing is. The zodiac signs are fixed sections of the sky. That's where they are. And when the Rasi aspects themselves refer to this fixed nature. So the way they work, it's kind of, it's very simple to understand. What happens is that the cardinal or the movable signs, which include Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, they all aspect the fixed signs, which include Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius, except the one next to it, and vice versa. So Aries aspects all the fixed signs except the ones next to it. So the fixed sign that's next to Aries is Taurus. So it doesn't aspect that one, but it aspects Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Okay? Capricorn aspects all the fixed signs except the one next to it. So it doesn't aspect Aquarius, which is the one next to it, but it aspects Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio. Vice versa for the fixed signs. So for instance, Leo aspects all of the cardinal or the movable signs except the one next to it. So the one that's next to Leo is Cancer. So Leo doesn't aspect Cancer, but it aspects Libra, Capricorn, and Aries. Right? And, Taurus doesn't aspect Aries, because that's the cardinal one next to it, but it aspects Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And then the dual signs all aspect each other. So that's very simple. It just means that Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces all aspect each other. So the signs always aspect each other. But you don't really assess the aspect unless there's a planet in the sign. So, the reason for this is simply because of a principle that has to do with priority. Okay, there's so many things to look at in the chart that empty signs aspecting each other is just not going to really show very much. And also planets aspecting empty houses, again, it doesn't show much. The spirit of this aspect is actually that the planets aspect each other through the Rasis. So when you get, the sun in Taurus and you have, Mercury in Libra, that's a Rasi aspect because Taurus is a fixed sign and Libra is a cardinal sign, but it's not the one next to it. So in this case, that sun and Mercury would aspect actually you would never have that because the sun and Mercury would never be that far from each other. So let's say sun and Jupiter, okay? So this would be a Rasi aspect. Now, it could happen in a harmonic chart. So these Rasi and planetary aspects go through harmonic charts and, the Rasi chart as well. So this is an important principle. And so, planets aspecting empty houses, that doesn't work either. And, the reason is because the planets have enough interchange with each other. And there are so many other factors. So when people say, when people try to attribute things like aspects to empty houses and all, and say, well, does that count too? Again, we can just keep saying that everything counts, but count for what? We don't need more things to look at in astrology. We need to know why we're looking at something and exactly what it means in exactly the right proportion. That's 10 times more important than saying, well, does that matter too? If it matters this much relative to the planets that are aspecting each other through Rasis, which would matter that much. The planet aspecting each other through the Rasi aspects is like this much. The planets aspecting empty houses might be that much, and then the empty signs aspecting each other might be like 1% of 1%. So this is the thing to understand. And so the fact that these Rashis are fixed, meaning that they don't move, really shows a quality of the fixed nature of the Rashi aspects. And what happens is that it's a quality that is just kind of like a certain quality of the person. Like when you see planets through Rashi aspect, it's just a fixed quality of the person. So we can look at a chart like, let's say, of Donald Trump. You see he has some planetary aspects with the sun and the moon aspecting each other along the nodal axis. And then you can also see that in addition to that, he has Saturn and Venus in a Cancer, which is Rashi aspecting Taurus. Okay, so again, these Rashi aspects, and by the way, this is very important. The nodes Rashi aspect. So the nodes do not aspect a planetary aspect. They don't cast that transiting aspect because the nodes don't have a light. They're not shining light at each other through transit the way planets do, right? They don't have light. They don't have that sort of drishti, but they do occupy signs. They do occupy Rashis, and the Rashis aspect each other. Okay, so planetary aspects are really based on the light that the planet is emitting. Rashi aspects are placed on where the Rashis are. And so with the planetary aspect, as they move into orb, their light intersects. Okay? This is why planetary aspects are based on the exact degrees, but Rashi aspects are based on the Rashis, and they're either on or off. A planet anywhere in Taurus, 1 degree or 29 degrees, is going to aspect any planet in Cancer because it's in the Rashi. So the way we can understand, let's say, like Donald Trump's Rashi aspects, these are just fixed parts of who he is. Rahu Sun in Taurus aspecting Venus Saturn in Cancer. So it's just a fixed part of his nature, that the part of him that is related to Rahu Sun and Taurus, which is about his identity and his big persona and his identity that is always wanting to grow and enjoy through Taurus, is just fixed and just a part of his character with that Saturn Venus. So Saturn Venus shows and it's in Cancer, it shows this desire to make a commitment to partners. Commitment to partners means getting married, not just being a playboy. And it also is aspecting his very identity and his very sort of big identity. So you see that big part of Rahu Sun. The big part of Rahu Sun is what makes him such a big, personality. And that big personality is just joined to this, hot babes, Venus and Saturn, which is, it literally means like making a commitment to partners, but it's also, you can take them separately. The Sun is Rashi aspecting Venus, which is his desires and his identity. They're mixed. There's no separation. Desires and identity. For him, it's identity because it's Leo, and the Sun is the Lugna Lord. Saturn and his identity, which means being determined to persevere through whatever happens. Whatever it is I'm doing, I'm going to see it to the end, and I'm going to work hard to fix it and to destroy those things that are in my way, and I'm not going to give up just because it's difficult. A lot of strength and determination in that way with Donald Trump, right? So this is Saturn Rashi aspecting the Sun, Venus aspecting the Sun. You could say Saturn Rashi aspecting Rahu, or Rahu Rashi aspecting Venus, very much about desires, fixed desires. A Rahu-Venus aspect either through conjunction, which is the only way that it can work unless it's Rashi aspect, or Rashi aspect. Rahu Rashi aspecting Venus means these big desires for big excesses, big, indulgences even with women, strong desires, sexuality, all of that. And Rahu aspecting Saturn, Rashi aspect, is kind of fearful. These kind of imagined fears, and big, exploding these sort of practical fears, practical, worries. Saturn is about the practical things that can go wrong. We've seen here even in his campaign, his response to fear is things like, and you see it, it's fixed. It's not even fluid. He doesn't even question it. He doesn't work through it. It's a fixed nature that, you know what, Mexicans are problems. Build a wall, keep them out, get them out of here. Very Saturn, like that's it. No flexibility on it. Build the wall, get them out. Rahu is also foreigners, by the way. Same one with the Muslims. The problem with the Muslims now, his response to the fear is something big, conflated. Do it, that's it. There's no question, there's no process, there's no talking about it. It's a fixed part of the person's nature. And actually, one of the main reasons a lot of people don't like Trump is because this conflated Saturn, like, I'm going to build a wall, there's no discussing it, and it's kind of exploding fears. It's kind of, and Rahu makes things bigger, and Saturn is, the fear. And instead of even maybe thinking things through a little bit more, or backing off when he might, even sort of backing off when he makes a mistake or misspeaks, that Saturn is like, no, it's this way, that's it. It's very sort of rigid and just a kind of nature of the person, because, most people agree that, especially before you cut off, before you prevent an entire race of coming into our entire religion of entering a country, you need to really think that policy through. It's like, no, that's it. Nothing to talk about. Simple. It's very kind of rigid. And Rahu Saturn makes for sort of rigid response to fear and to, stopping things and preventing things. So you can see that as a Rashi aspect sort of quality that he has. This is his response to handling problems. By the way, I'm not criticizing him about that at this point. I don't actually agree with that, but I'm saying you can see this fixed nature in the Rashi aspects. It's like, this is it. This is a fixed part of the person. This is just the way they are. It's the way they see it. You see it come out even in their, if they have policies or something that we would recognize. Very much so. Saturn is definitely about like build a wall or keep them out, prevent them from coming. Very Saturn thing. So you can see that in the Rashi aspects in his chart. First, he's got the Saturn-Venus conjunction in Cancer, which shows, Saturn-Venus definitely shows that the person makes a commitment to their partners and their sexuality and all that. If they're in it for the long haul, maybe not always, but as soon as they're with someone, he's been married 3 times, so he doesn't just sort of hang out. And he makes a commitment to the family and all of that. Again, these are all shown by Saturn and Saturn-Venus joined the Sun, Saturn-Venus joined Rahu. He has a big family, right? Big stuff. And you can really see that, Rahu-Saturn Rashi aspect, and even his identity tied to those kind of things. His identity tied to being someone who is going to, keep you safe, handle the difficulties, handle the problems. Handling problems is the Saturn thing, right? And tying even his identity to those kinds of things, it's very interesting, and it's different than the Sun-Moon aspect that he has, which I'll talk about in the next video when I talk about the planetary aspects. Planetary aspects are something that's more fluid, but you can see this is something that is just part of who he is. And so look at Rashi aspects, like in your chart, and look at the different, look at how this is just the way it is with the person. The Rashi aspect is the karma, you would say that's just sort of fixed. It's like, this is just the way it is. And, it can be a great source of strength. It's also where we can be kind of stuck in something. So, check that out. And again, it also brings in Rahu and Ketu, and they can aspect sort of one way, because, Rahu is aspecting, you can have, wherever Rahu Ketu is, they're not aspecting the same signs. So those kinds of things can also happen. So this is a sort of specific thing about the Rashi aspects. And again, I'm going to go very deeply into these things in the course that I teach on Rashi aspects and talking about each of the planets, the Rashi aspect and all that stuff. But this is just a sort of introduction, because I do have a course coming up, and I'm sure you'll really